Well, everyone, this is Addison Williams, the host of Prospects for Christ, a place for you to not only come together in community, but also to share stories and relate to people just like yourself, people that are in an element of, I'm an athlete and I'm trying to share my faith and live my faith out daily. What does that mean? For you, that story is different than mine, but what I hope that we capture through this podcast and through this video is that everything that we say some way can relate to you. So today, without further ado, I actually have a very special guest on the podcast today. His name is Ryan Helsley. He graduated high school from Sequoia High School in Tahlequah, Oklahoma in 2013. In 2013, I was actually on the Northeastern State baseball team. And Ryan Helsley, the guy that you see here, he was actually a freshman when I was a junior. And I was fortunate to spend 2 seasons with Ryan as a junior and senior, but then something changed in 2015. In 2015, Ryan here was drafted in the 5th round by the St. Louis Cardinals. And since then, he spent the better half of 5 years in the minor leagues. And then in 2019, he actually made his major league debut. So Ryan, thank you so much for hopping on the call today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you. It's been a while since we've seen each other. I mean, you've been traveling, playing ball. Obviously, you're married now. Life happens fast. But today I want to not talk about me or my relationship with God. I really want to just talk about you and talk about yourself as a student athlete, and then also how you've been able to weave your own personal faith into that. So let's start from the beginning. Walk me through just your experience as a student athlete. What was that like? Obviously, you were drafted right outside of your sophomore year. So walk me through the freshman and sophomore year, not only in the classroom, but on the field as well. Talk to me about that dynamic that you went through there.
Yeah, obviously it's a big change in life, having to go to school and kind of move away from home, even though that's my hometown, you're still on your own for the first time. And I think going out there to school for anyone is important to find out, get around a good crew early, because you can definitely be influenced in the wrong ways. We've all seen guys or kids we know that kind of stay out of school and, soon they're out of school and getting mixed in with the wrong people who aren't taking things seriously, but yeah, I mean, I had fun at SU, getting to know you and having, what we had on Tuesday, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, I think is what we had Tuesday nights. Yeah. I probably didn't go as much as I should have. I wish I would have went more. I wasn't the perfect college student, but I definitely learned from it. And looking back on it, I wish I was a little better. But I'm glad to see my journey and kind of happy to where I've come, and look forward to keep growing.
Absolutely. So let's just bring it home. I mean, you and I both know as student athletes, we're not only talking about academics, but we're also balancing being on the road 5 days out of the week, plus practice, homework. Just walk through that reality of the college baseball player. Speak to how you managed and prioritized academics and baseball.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was always about academics first, because at the time I wasn't really, who I am today. Obviously, I kind of was a late bloomer is what I like to tell people. And, in college for me, it was always about the degree first, and I wanted to give everything I had to that. So, I mean, as an athlete, especially baseball, I feel like, and I know other sports are probably similar, but, in the off season, would have early morning workouts and have to be there by 6 or 7 a.m., whatever it was, and then you have class all morning, and then practice all afternoon, and then you have study hall in the evenings, and then you only have an hour or two a day really by yourself, which makes it really hard. And it's really easy to just, go to sleep or turn on a movie or play a few video games and, kind of fall out of, your relationship with Christ and, kind of get away from your readings and stuff. I mean, I definitely did that, I'll testify to that and own up to it. I wasn't as good as I should have been in college, because it gets easy, things become a blur, you just get in this routine and, it's not that you don't want to, but I mean, you just kind of forget about it, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it, is you just are cruising along and things are just going, and I think for, even if it's just a verse a day or, a chapter a day, whatever it is, at least if you're in the word, you're going to start yourself on the right foot, or if you read right before you go to sleep, before you say your prayers at night, I think would be a good way to do that. At least you're getting something of the sort,
Absolutely. So you mentioned a couple of different things. You said that you wished you could have done it differently, and I'll be the one to attest to that. I think that there are a lot of things that we've said, oh man, I wish I could have done that differently. But is there a moment where you can look back and you can say, God got me through that? That was a God moment. Do you have a God moment that you say, that was a pivotal point to where I realized that I kind of fell out of this routine, or I fell into this routine and out of my relationship with God? Could you speak to that?
Yeah. It's probably when I honestly got drafted, right after I left NSU, because oddly enough, you kind of have more downtime in pro ball than you do at college, because you're not having to study or worry about school. And, I had some free time and just kind of started slowly reading the Bible again, and just kind of realized what I missed, and kind of felt like that love, you kind of, that feeling you get from reading and the calmness you get and the comfort you get from staying in the word, and I was just kind of sad and upset with myself, like, why did I go so long, being so scattered, the last 2 years. Like I said, it wasn't like it was a choice. I kind of, you just fall into those lackadaisical moments and it just kind of becomes a habit. And I started reading the daily prayer in the minor leagues. It was a little Bible. I forgot the name of it, but it was just like a little daily devotional that I had that my mom had gotten me. And last year I actually started reading Through the Bible, Walking with Wayno. I don't know if you've seen that on Twitter or not, but it's read the Bible in a year. It's just really cool. If you have 20 or 30 minutes a day, you could do it, and it's awesome. There's so many things, in the Bible that, you don't really understand, I guess, until you read them or truly understand how God wants you to act and stuff. Being told is one thing, but reading it and seeing it and understanding it for yourself is completely different. And I grew up in church, and I always have known who Jesus was, how he died on the cross for our sins and stuff. But to really dive in deeper into the Bible and really, grow that relationship, I think has been huge and pivotal for me over the last few years. So.
Absolutely. That's great. So as far as something that has really stuck with you, obviously somebody can believe Jesus came, he died, he rose again, so that we could live back in community with him. But to your own story, Ryan, what would you say is something tangible that you've been able to take from your readings, your daily prayer time, honestly, your own quiet time, and move that into your interactions in the locker room with the guys that you're in and with 7 days a week? How have you been able to live out your faith in a way that some people might not want to say, hey, I love Jesus, I'm there? They might not want to shout that from the rooftops, and that's okay because we all have different personalities. But for you specifically, how have you been encouraged to live out your own personal faith?
Yeah, it's pretty easy when you get around your friends, especially in a locker room setting, to kind of act a fool sometimes and kind of get goofy and just let things kind of slip your mind, I guess, But I pray about it all the time. I just pray that I act the way that God wants me to and live out the way that would please Him. And I don't really know if there's a technical 1, 2, 3 right, wrong way, but I definitely think that, if we try to do our best every day and, try to share our love with others as Jesus showed us and forgiveness, I think that others will really see that, and kind of notice like, hey, there's something different about that guy. He's always happy. He's always, in a good mood. Like, what's up? Why are you like that? And, just hoping that when that time comes that you're ready, and I think that's something that I'm always trying to prepare for, so that when that time comes that I'll be able to share that with them.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So we've talked about a lot of things. Obviously, you've had a very unique story from the traditional student athlete, just because you graduated small town. Obviously, Tahlequah, we consider a college town. You and I both know that. But yeah, you're a freshman, sophomore. So realistically, we're talking about the age of 19, 20. You're moving off into a completely different atmosphere, because now you're not only leaving college, but you're also technically leaving home as well. So moving into the minor leagues, specifically on the road all the time, talk about the dynamic of your experience of making that transition, because honestly, a lot of our listeners are going to say, well, I'm moving 1,000 miles away from home. I don't know how to step into a college setting and really keep my faith. And so would you have any encouragement to that student athlete that's going to a new place, really doesn't know anybody, and they're looking for some sort of foundation to latch onto?
Yeah, I think every school's probably got something like, NSU did some kind of program that, where athletes can come together and kind of do Bible studies and stuff. And, it makes it a lot more fun to go through the Bible with your peers, to have someone to kind of bounce questions off of and what their thoughts are and things like that. I know in the minor leagues we have chapel on Sundays, which makes it fun, and you get to talk to your guys about your studies, and having guys like Wayno and those guys up here in the clubhouse to just talk to them every day and have Bible talks, those are a lot of fun. And I think it's something that's really kind of helped me grow to see how other people see things, because we all don't see eye to eye. We're all different. And I think being able to have groups like that in your life really help you stay grounded and on the right path.
Absolutely. So Ryan, what is, out of all the talks, prayer talks, quiet time with yourself, what would you say your go-to Bible verse is, and why? Why does it resonate with you so much?
Probably Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. I think for me that just helps me relieve a lot of stress or anxieties, just to understand that God really is in control. And life's a lot more fun when you're not stressed out and anxious. You're not pulling stress on the small things. I've really tried to see all the good in every situation, and make the most out of everything that I can, because life's really short, and we tend to think it's super long, but I'm already almost 28 years old now, and I've blinked and I feel like I was in NSU yesterday. It's 7 years ago. Just like, it's only going to keep going by faster. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, Ryan, I'm 30 with 2 children, so I can tell you and attest it goes by really fast. But that's really awesome. You mentioned a lot of great things. Lean not on your own understanding, but lean on the power and promises of God. Dealing with adversity, that student athlete 101 is dealing with adversity. So whenever you think about that environment, what would your encouragement be to that student athlete that might be actually having questions about his or her faith, especially being away from home for the very first time? Statistics will tell you that that's the majority of times that people drift away from God, because they are away from home for the first time. So what would your encouragement be to that student athlete that might be wrestling with that faith? What would your advice to that person be?
Yeah, I think just like I said earlier, just trying to find, some kind of structure in your daily routine. I think routines help a lot of people, especially, reading the Bible. I think that'll definitely help you draw you closer. And, I pray all throughout the day. And I feel like that's one thing that really kind of helps draw me close. And because it feels like you're always having that continual conversation with God, and always seeing things that he wants you to see and stuff. So I think that's big for me. And also, like I said, I think just trying to surround yourself with people, who you want to be like, because whoever you're around, that's a reflection of who you are. I mean, you hear that all the time. And if you look in the mirror, your friends, and you're like, who am I hanging out with? And you might have to question yourself and reprioritize your life and stuff, which is hard. We all go through something like that in our life, and that's part of the process of growing up and stuff. So I think just finding the right group of friends, and I think you'll figure it out really quick. Whether if it's who you need to be around or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of being around who you want to be around, I remember being a junior and the freshman class coming in, and honestly, that was your class. And I remember how dedicated you were, not only to the team, but you were also dedicated off the field in the weight room. And one thing that always resonates with me, and part of the reason why I feel like hearing your story is so valuable, is because anybody can look at you right now and say, Ryan Helsley, St. Louis Cardinals pitcher. But I can look at you and say, Ryan Helsley, working nonstop in the weight room, nonstop on the baseball field, with that dedication. Whenever you make it to the top, right? People don't necessarily see the journey. They don't see the 6 a.m. workouts. They don't see the long practices, the PFPs. They don't see all of that, or the sprints. We know we've had plenty of sprints in our day. They just don't see it. So Ryan, talk through just your story, your own dedication in your own words to say, this is where I was, this is where I wanted to be. Everybody can see you now, but I think a lot of people miss the journey, and I would love for you just to speak to the journey a little bit to our audience. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think something my dad said to me and my brothers when I was young was something along the lines of, whether you're the doctor or the janitor, you got to try to be the best that you are at your job, because, people depend on you. And I think that's something that's always stuck with me, especially in life. We can all make our own choices, and in a sense, we all control our own destiny, so we can be as good as we want to be at something, or at least we can say we tried our very best, and that was something that always kind of stuck with me, in school and in sports and athletics was, I'm going to try to be the best I can possibly be. And if it's good enough, then great. And if it's not, then, I can live with that. It's something that's not going to keep me up at night, and, I'll be able to move on if it didn't work out. And I still, I try to think like that, with whatever it is, whatever it may be, if I'm working on a new pitch or working out in the off season still, I still try to keep that same mentality, try to be the best, because I'm always trying to get better. And because in life, if you're not trying to get better, you're regressing, somebody else is going to catch up to you and pass you. So for me, I think something that's always kind of stuck with me is just trying to, like I said earlier, make the most out of every situation, because some people are blessed with better situations than others, but there's no reason you can't make it to the top too. You might just have a couple of little extra speed bumps in there. So I think just keeping your head down and taking it one day at a time is huge too. We, as people, we tend to kind of look ahead and see the big picture when you need to focus on, what's right in front of us. And I think that's something that we could all really benefit from.
No, it's really funny because you mentioned whether it's learning a new pitch or not. And I remember whenever you came to NSU as a freshman, you had a little bit of trouble throwing the changeup. And I remember that was your pitch. That was the thing that you continued to work on day in and day out, just mastering the changeup, because it just wasn't there for you. It was there for you, but it wasn't where you wanted it to be. And I just remember you coming in as a freshman and then turning into a sophomore. It was a completely different Ryan Helsley. And also, I will say kudos to you, even though you were still day in and day out working on your changeup, you were still MIAA Pitcher of the Year. So let's not forget that accolade, and let's not throw that out, because even though I'm somewhat joking with you about the changeup, you worked extremely hard to get it where you wanted to be. And you're right. You were day to day in the bullpen, playing changeup catch. You were making little things happen, and then the results showed that. So even practically, you lived out then what you're talking about now. So I would also like to celebrate that moment as well. So Ryan, in regards to living out your faith daily, just a last bit of encouragement for the other guy, the one that realistically is having troubles and really wants to latch on to that. So your advice, if you could just put a bow on your journey of working from an NSU starting pitcher to a pitcher in the big leagues and utilizing your faith to do that, what's your last bit of encouragement that you'd like to leave on the table?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, just having that, my daily routine, like I said earlier, it just really feels like it helps me get on the right foot, like I start out the day without any anxieties or any doubts or anything like that. Anything negative, is already out the door, like that for me just kind of pushes it out and gets me out on the right foot, and I'm ready to start my day. And, sometimes I'll pray driving to the field, just talking out loud. I keep my eyes open, but, I'm still praying,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think, I think people try to make prayer a lot harder than it really is, because God's always listening. I think prayer is super powerful, and we always hear that, you hear it at church all the time, but it's hard to really grasp that concept and that mindset if you don't do it yourself, and that's one thing I've really learned is people can tell you how great God is, but you got to feel it yourself too, Yeah. It's your own person, you have to feel it in your heart, and you got to be willing to listen to him, because it's not always, what we want to hear, but, God's plan's always right, and he's always going to be there with us every step of the way.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I'm glad to know that you pray while you're driving, keeping your eyes open. That was a good little disclaimer there. That's great. But yeah, I think you're 100% accurate when we talk about practically living out our faith. It doesn't have to be this show. But speaking of the show, whenever we see you on the TV screens this upcoming baseball season, you step out onto the field, Ryan, what's going through your mind? Let's bring it back to the athlete, because we always live for the bottom of the ninth moments, the 2-minute warning moments. Talk about the dynamic of you in the locker room and you stepping out on the field to pitch. What is your mindset like? How can you encourage somebody that is also wanting to compete at that next level?
There's a saying where you practice like you play and you play like you practice, So for me, that means, I'm pitching that bottom of the ninth and catch play the day before, or right now in spring training, I'm taking those mental reps right now earlier for when that time comes. It becomes second nature. I don't have to think about anything, everything, the pitch, the sequence, the batter in the box, wherever Yachty's sitting up, the guys on base, whatever, I'm not letting any of that speed me up or speed up the game, and I'm in full control, So I think, really practicing how you want to play and it's going to turn out. You're going to play how you practice. I think a lot of people now think they want to be Barry Bonds or Ken Griffey Jr. or Roger Clemens, but they're not willing to put in the work. And, those guys are obviously really good, but I guarantee you they didn't get there by just waking up and not working hard or putting in the extra work or swings or watching extra film, So, I think like I said earlier, you're always going to be as good as you want to be. I don't think there's any limits for any of us.
Absolutely. Barry Bonds, you threw out some big names there, but you forgot Ryan Helsley. Like, where was he in that?
I'm still coming up.
There you go. So, Ryan, closing it out today, I just want to not only thank you for coming on the podcast, but even more so, living out your faith, because let's talk about the reality. You're on a very big platform now, and your willingness to put God in the center of that speaks volumes. So what about the person that might be hesitant to share his or her faith, or kind of reserve that back and not fully allow him or herself to express, hey, I actually do believe in God? How do you handle that?
Yeah, it's tough, especially for people who are more reserved. I'm kind of a quieter person too. I'm not really a rah or loud person that's always got to be talking right in the middle of stuff. I'm kind of more of like a lead by example type person. So I think, obviously praying about it and just being able to come out of your comfort zone at times, because, that's what we're called to do as disciples. I think we have to be able to share God's love with others, because how else are they going to know we believe? That's how we're told we have to let people know, is confess our faith, and I think when you do that, one things that I've learned is it's a lot easier than you think. When you're confessing the love that Jesus has for you, you really feel his mercy and his grace, which for me makes it a lot easier and kind of gets you giddy, like you kind of, they call them Jesus bumps almost, like you really feel God's love. And I think it's just about, being bold and taking a step out there, because it'll get easier too with reps, just with anything in life.
Absolutely. Ryan, thank you so much for being willing to share a little bit more about who you are. Do you have any closing statements? Anything else you'd like to share today?
No, I think I'm good. I appreciate you for thinking about me and getting me on here. Like I said, I'm not the best at sharing my faith either, so I love the opportunity to kind of get it out there and confess my faith, and just share the love and thankfulness and gratefulness I have for our Lord and Savior as well. Because he's gonna come back one day, and we got to be ready, and we gotta share his love. And I look forward to reading the Bible every day now. I haven't missed a day in over a year and a half, and I think we all got to start somewhere, so it's super exciting. And just thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ryan.